Welcome back to the Morning Basket Music channel. I'm Leanne, a homeschool mom of two beautiful kiddos and a music educator. And today I'm finally getting to do something that I have been so excited about for a very long time. I'm going to give you a complete walkthrough of the Morning Basket music curriculum that I wrote especially for homeschoolers. As I go through the complete program, I'm going to cover many important details about what's included, and I will be answering a lot of the frequently asked questions that I get about the curriculum. But if there's anything that I happen to leave out or something specific you want to know about, please be sure to drop all your questions in the comments below. So, without further ado, let's jump in and see what this music curriculum, Morning Basket Music, looks like in action. Morning Basket Music includes 12 full weeks of music curriculum, and it was written using a unit study approach. Now, some of you who are homeschooling may already be familiar with the curriculum called 5 in a Row. I know I personally used it when my children were just starting out their schooling around pre-K kindergarten age. With 5 in a Row, it would always start out at the beginning of the week. I would read an engaging picture book with my kids and would have some sort of theme to it. For example, like the book Make Way for Ducklings is all about ducks, right? So the lessons that followed later in the week all had something to do with the central theme of that book. And it would cover different topics like science or history or art, even math, different things like that. So how does this translate where I call Morning Basket Music a musical unit study? Well, it follows a similar format, meaning always day one at the beginning of the week, I'm going to suggest a picture book for you to read with your kids. After that first day, all of the daily activities that follow are going to cover some type of musical skill, whether it be singing or playing instruments or learning how to read rhythms. But all the musical activities are centered around that similar theme from the story. So let me go ahead and share with you what some of the different themes are from the books selected for Morning Basket Music. They include themes like monkeys, farm animals, fish, orchestra instruments, and more specifically, the percussion family, space, shadows, construction trucks, boats, baking and food items, as well as opposite words like high and low. There's a few different reasons that I like using this themed approach to the music lessons. And the first one is it allows you to go ahead and choose your unit study based on something you might already be covering in your homeschool. For example, if your family is already learning about fish or other ocean animals, then you could select which musical unit study you want to add based on that theme. And another reason is you could even choose to use a different picture book besides just the one that I recommended, but you'd still be able to do all of the fun musical activities in that unit. Another reason I really like this is it involves more of a spiral approach to learning music. So kids are going to see a lot of similar themes like reading musical notation or creative movement or playing different instruments. These things are going to come up time and time again in the different musical unit studies. So I'll go ahead and answer one of those frequently asked questions. They do not have to necessarily be done in a certain order. You have the ability to just pick and choose the ones that you want to do. To me, this is the perfect blend of using a skills-based music curriculum, but at the same time, it is very adaptable to your family. Now, let's talk about why I wrote the Morning Basket music curriculum in the first place. If you're new to this channel and you're not already familiar with my background, I basically spent my entire life either performing, studying, or teaching music. So as a young kid, I grew up singing in choir and taking piano lessons, and then I went on to college to study music education. And let's see, my professional career, I've spent 8 years teaching music in public schools, most of it in elementary school, And then since I made the decision to stay home and homeschool my own kids, I've continued teaching music in private co-ops as well as lessons. So as you can tell, music has been a major part of my life, but I understand that has not been the case for everybody. It all began about 5 years ago when I started using themed music lessons to teach at our co-op. And what I loved about using a children's picture book to introduce a music lesson was that it just got the kids hooked right away. Whether the book was funny or it had beautiful artwork or it was just a really good story, it's like it captured their attention right from the start, and then they were so excited to see what musical things we were going to learn. So it gave me the chance to get the kids practicing all kinds of different music skills while at the same time tying them all together around a central theme. In my classes, I would call this stories and songs, which is very original, I know. But the more that I continued to tie together music lessons with great children's literature, I just became hooked. And I found this to be such a successful way to teach music over many, many years. Somewhere along the way, it occurred to me, here's a need that I could fill for other homeschoolers. There are plenty of people out there who would love to include music as a subject in their homeschool, but they can't outsource it to lessons or classes, maybe because of costs or time constraints. And at the same time, they themselves don't feel qualified to be able to teach music because they didn't grow up having the same type of background that I did. This is the main reason why Morning Basket Music was created, to make music a more accessible, easier subject for parents to teach their kids at home. Let's jump in and see what the curriculum actually looks like on the inside. So when you purchase Morning Basket Music, you will receive a digital download that has your teacher's guide with all the different lesson plans and activities, as well as printable things from the appendix. So it really is up to you whether you want to print all these pages from the teacher's guide. I know a lot of people like to have a physical copy that they can flip through and make their notes on and that kind of thing, but it is optional. Now, I will show you in just a minute where the appendix comes into play, and that is not going to be optional. You will need to print the different activities that come with it for your kids to do throughout the week. Also, I want to mention that even if you do decide to print yourself a physical copy, I would still recommend keeping the digital version pulled up, whether on your computer or a tablet, because several of the lesson plans will include a link to something. Many of them include recordings that you can go watch on YouTube, or maybe a composer website, or certain online activities. So again, even if you're looking at a physical copy, I think it's just a good idea to have that digital version as well pulled up so that it's available whenever you need to use it. So as we open it up, you're going to see my welcome letter here at the beginning, which just explains what the program's about, followed by the helpful hints. And these suggestions here, they really do answer a lot of people's FAQs. So if there's something you're not sure about with the program, you're typically going to find it here. Then we've got the activities overview. And I'm going to suggest 100% of the time, no matter what unit you've chosen or what order you've decided to go in, you really need to read through the description of all the different activities, because there may be some things that you're less familiar with. I'll show you an example. If you're a person, a parent teaching this, who is not familiar with how to read rhythms, here you go. Right there in the activities overview, I'm going to give you a suggested method for teaching rhythms and how to read the rhythms yourself. Then we get to the table of contents, and this is where you're going to see the full list of all the books that are included with each unit. And now here we've gotten to our first unit, Caps for Sale, and it always begins with a unit overview. So the unit overview page is really just meant to give you an idea of what all the different activities are included in that week. And while it's not an exact formula, I would say that most of the units do follow a similar format. So, for example, on day 1, you will always read a picture book first to introduce the weekly theme. Days 2 and 3 will kind of rotate between different activities such as reading rhythm notation, singing, movement activities, or dance, or possibly playing instruments. Day 4 always has a listening piece with some background on the composer, and it's followed with discussion questions. And then on day 5, it usually ends the week with some type of musical game to reinforce what kids have been learning about. And you'll even see the occasional craft thrown in as well. So here, the weekly theme on Caps for Sale you can see is monkeys as well as imitation. And we'll go down here to look at the recordings. I always try to break these into 2 categories so you will know which recordings are going to be required and then others that are just recommended for you to use. And I have done my very best job to try and find links to all these different recordings, and you will find those in the lesson plans because really most of them can be found for free and you don't have to purchase something or download something extra. Over here we have the materials section. And then let's look down at the bottom here that says extension for older students. So this is something really important that I want to explain for a minute. One of the biggest questions that people have is what is the intended age range for morning basket music? So I would consider it to be an early elementary curriculum, anywhere from ages 4 to 8. That's who this was written for. At the same time, I understand that people do have multiple age kids they're trying to teach, right? So one of the things that I intentionally did this year was I updated the program to include many different extension ideas for older students you might be teaching. I did this because, again, I knew many moms would be homeschooling multiple ages, and it's great when you can find something that your whole family can enjoy and everyone learns something from it. So while yes, older elementary kids would most likely be past the point of enjoying picture books as read-alouds, the actual music skills that are taught in these lessons are still very much relevant for older kids, and all throughout the curriculum I tried to sprinkle through different ideas of how to adapt these lessons with your older elementary kids. Now we get into the actual lesson plans. So day 1, and I always try to put the really important words in bold so you know what we're discussing, imitation. Day 2, you've got a dance to learn, a monkey dance with instructions written out for you. Day 3 is a rhythm activity, and you will find all these printables in the appendix. Day 4, like I said, is always going to have some type of guided listening activity. So I give you a link to the song as well as the questions for discussion. And then on day 5, in this particular one, we're going to be singing a song here called Do As I'm Doing. And again, moms and dads who might be teaching this program, if you do not yourself feel comfortable with your own singing voice, or you're just not sure how to read the music of a particular song, there is always going to be a YouTube video for you to pull up so that you can feel confident you have a good model, an example that you can play for your kids. And finally, we come to the appendix. And as I mentioned before, this is the entire list of all the extra activities that go with each unit. So it tells you where to find it. And these are the things that you will need to print. In some cases, you'll cut them out for your kids to use. So let's go ahead and take a look at what some of the example activities you might be using in morning basket music are. Starting with this book, Mortimer, by Robert Munch. And just remember that each one of these 12 books has been chosen for a specific reason to be part of the curriculum. Again, it could be something that's really funny or something that's visually engaging or teaches a good lesson. Some of them even do include music themes. So in Mortimer, the example I'm holding right here, if we kind of flip through, here's one of the things I love about Mortimer's story. Your kids are going to be learning about high and low pitches through Mortimer's song. And if you look closely at the page, look for those words that say thump. What I love is that the author did actually make them look like stair steps going up, and sometimes they come back down. So as you read the story with your kids and you're introducing the concept that pitches can get higher or lower, you're going to actually read it and point to those stair steps on the page like this: thump, 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 thump. So they're getting the visual and the sounds to go with it. Now, using this book, Caps for Sale, I'll show you an example of a rhythm activity your kids will learn. So one of the first music skills that kids need to learn related to rhythm is they should be able to tell the difference between sounds that make one rhythm sound on the beat versus two rhythm sounds. So here we've got an example of tree, one rhythm sound, monkey, two rhythm sounds. And they're going to put these different rhythm cards together in various combinations that they make up. They will learn how to tap them on a percussion instrument, or if you don't own any of those, you can simply play them, make the sounds yourself by things like clapping or patting or even stomping feet. In this story, Harold finds a voice. You have an example of playing a musical game with your kids. So Harold, the parrot, is all about copying different sounds that he hears in his everyday life. So your kids have an opportunity to gather supplies that they can find all around the house, and they're going to learn a game, a sound game called What's the Sound? Actually, I'm pretty sure I did this one as an example in one of my other YouTube videos, so you can actually go back and watch it and see how I introduced this game. So the instructions to play, it says to choose a variety of household objects that will make sounds, find a place in the room to keep all the objects hidden together where your child can't see them. Could be behind a couch or a curtain, even under a table or behind a door. You start out simple by playing one sound at a time with a hidden object and let your child guess what is making the sound. You want to select somewhere between maybe 5 to 10 items. Once they can successfully identify the sounds they heard, make it harder by playing 2 sounds in a row, and they have to guess them in order. Then move on to 3, 4, even 5 different sounds in a row, which is really challenging. Then I have the suggested objects that you could use to make sounds. Again, some of these could include actual instruments if you own any, but if not, here are some good choices for you to use. Things like wooden blocks, rubber sole shoes, Velcro, spoons or other metal silverware, pages in a book to flip, a spice jar or a salt shaker, a calculator with buttons, because who doesn't love to press all of those, a comb or a hairbrush, a jacket with a zipper, or a dog collar with a buckle that they can snap. So this is a great game for kids to just learn about differentiating between different types of sounds that they hear. Here's the story Swimmy by Leo Leone. This one was definitely chosen because of its artwork, and it really is a good story about teamwork as well. So your kids will have the opportunity to do a listening example with the piece Aquarium by Camille Saint-Saëns, and they will answer questions about it. Then they get to follow their very own play-along map. So this is an activity that, yes, you would do with instruments, but let me pause right there for a second. Here's another frequently asked question. Do I have to own instruments in order for my kids to do this program? And the answer is no, absolutely not. It's great if you can, if you're able to afford those. You can visit my website, Morning Basket Music, because I do have an entire resources page with several different instruments that I recommend. However, not everyone has the money to invest in those, and I completely understand that. So in one of the units, you'll actually find an entire page that has ideas for making your own homemade instruments. Things like shakers and drums and rhythm sticks and all those frequently used instruments. But here's the other good news. Let's say, well, I'm not a crafty mom. I don't even want to make my own homemade instruments. You can use this beautiful thing called body percussion. And that literally just means you play the sounds on your body by doing things like clapping, patting, snapping your fingers, anything that makes a percussion sound. And the example I'm going to show you for the play-along map, this goes with the song Under the Sea. And kids just have an easy way to follow along with the times when they're going to play one sound versus 2 sounds. We even, over here, we introduce the concept of a musical rest when they should be silent and not play. And I only printed out the picture version of this play-along map, but I do actually have a different version in Morning Basket Music that was designed for the older students. If they have already had some exposure to reading rhythms, then they get to take the same play-along map, but it is just rewritten to show the actual music notes. So again, that can be a simple way that you get to extend the activity for your older kids. Finally, I'm going to show you two different examples of how there is some coloring, artwork, and even writing that is worked into the Morning Basket Music curriculum. So here with our story, Moses Goes to a Concert, and by the way, this unit is available completely for free. You can download it from the website. It includes a percussion family coloring page, so kids are going to learn about some of the major ones in the percussion family. And then let's switch over to this story. This is a really fun one called Never Play Music Right Next to the Zoo. Sounds intriguing, doesn't it? This is a really cute story, and they do actually learn the names of several instruments in that one. But I really wanted kids to be able to draw and write their own opinion about which instrument they liked best from the story. So here's an example. If you're teaching a younger kid or someone who just really likes to draw, then they can actually draw one of the instruments from the story that they learned about, and maybe they're just practicing writing a few words at a time. You could have them trace the name of the instrument or write a complete sentence. This one says, "My favorite instrument is the violin because it sounds smooth and I like the high pitches." Okay, now that's actually kind of a complex sentence, so maybe for, first and second graders. But if you are including your older students, again, in these different units, they would be able to write something longer, maybe like a paragraph. Another extension idea for your older students is whenever you're taking one of these listening pieces that you have discussed as a family, I like to give them the opportunity to write an actual musical critique, because we're talking about, again, opinion essays. Like I could even see older elementary kids being able to do that, where they really think about what are the things I liked, what are the things I didn't like about this song, and then write it as if they're an actual music critic. And the last type of activity that I want to talk about are the movement activities in Morning Basket Music. There really is a pretty good mixture of creative movement versus teaching a pattern dance. So if it's something that comes with a pattern dance, you will find in your teacher's guide just very specific written out instructions for each part of the song. When it comes to creative movement, kids will be doing things like, I'm thinking in the story, 3 Cheers for Kid McGear. It comes with a set of cards that you can actually download from a website for free, and they do things like stomp like a jackhammer, and they're going to use their bodies in different ways to be creative and to kind of act out parts of the story. One thing I do want to mention is in particular, if the pattern dances seem a little bit complicated, either for you to teach or for your kids to learn, you can always simplify them. You don't have to do them exactly the way I wrote them. So you're always welcome to do things like, hey, let's just keep the steady beat while we listen to this song, or, get your kids involved in coming up with ideas. What do you want to do during part A of the song? How do you want to move during part B? And this can be it can work really well when you have multiple kids and everybody wants a chance to share their ideas. Okay, to wrap up this curriculum review, I want to go back and touch on some of those frequently asked questions. And be sure to stick around to the very end because I have a special announcement about the Morning Basket Music curriculum. So the first commonly asked question is, again, what is the intended age range? I recommend it for ages 4 to 8, but you can flip through and find those extra ideas for how to adapt it to your older kids. The second question is, do I need to purchase any of the books or the instruments that are recommended for this program? And my answer is no for both the books and the instruments. I already explained earlier in the video about what to do if you don't own any instruments, but let's talk about the books as well. Really, I would say all 12 of these I have been able to find at my own public library. So if it's a story your kids really love and you want to just own it, that's great. but I would definitely recommend take advantage of the free public library and or different sites like thrift books, things like that. But let's say you don't have any type of access to the particular book that I recommend for it. Remember that you do have the option to just substitute another book that follows the same common theme. How long does each lesson take to teach, and do the units have to be taught in a certain order? So, considering it is called Morning Basket Music, the idea is that these lessons are so short they could be done in your homeschool morning time. So I would say most activities are usually going to take maybe between 10 to 15 minutes. Maybe day one will be a little bit shorter when you're just reading this story. But I definitely encourage you to just, follow your kids' lead. If there's an activity that they're super interested in, let's say they've started learning about rhythms and they want to keep going with it, then by all means extend that activity and find some other types of things to play on. So on average, 10 to 15 minutes, but they could be longer depending on your kid's interest level. And then as far as do the units have to be taught in a certain order, all of them can be done in any order you want to, with the exception of Unit 12 based on the book Little Toot. And I do explain this in my opening letter that the reason this one needs to be done after certain other stories is because it starts introducing the rhythm of a half note. Okay, it's the one that looks like an empty circle in the middle. So the half note rhythm is something that's kind of hard for kids to grasp until they've already learned about quarter notes and eighth notes. So I do recommend just that one unit be done after a different unit that introduces those concepts. But otherwise, you are completely welcome to mix them up in any order that you see fit. Could I teach this curriculum as part of a homeschool co-op class that I'm teaching? Absolutely. Remember, this is where I got my start with the idea of stories and songs. I was teaching these exact lessons as part of my music class. So you have complete permission to do that. You don't need to purchase anything extra. You are welcome to use it with whatever group of kids you happen to be teaching. The final question, and maybe the most important one, many parents want to know, how can I teach music to my kids when I myself don't even really feel comfortable with my musical experience? In particular, maybe my singing voice. I just think it's terrible. I'm so embarrassed to sing in front of my kids. Here's how I would answer it. Just remember, this is all about having fun and teaching our kids music in a skills-based way. It does not require you to have a college degree or really any musical experience yourself. I have provided all the tips and resources that you need as part of this program. And also, okay, let's say you're a little bit uncomfortable with your singing voice. I want you to think about what kind of lesson you're modeling for your kids when you're willing to try something that's a little bit outside of your comfort zone. Okay, I think our kids need to see that we're willing to take risks sometimes and that we can have fun learning something new or practicing a new skill right alongside them. So I would highly encourage you not to leave out certain things just because maybe you're not feeling adequate. I will throw in a quick pitch for my coaching call that's listed on the Morning Basket Music website. You are able to actually book a 30-minute session face-to-face with me over Zoom, and I can answer any questions or model any of the activities that you might still feel a little bit unsure about. So I would highly recommend that if you feel like you need a little extra help. And now for my special announcement. Drum roll, please. Beginning August 1st, all 12 of the Morning Basket Music units will become available for individual purchase. So up until this point, it has been just one entire bundle that people can purchase to use in their homeschool. But I really felt like this was an important change to make. And let me explain why. I know that many of you, especially with your elementary kids, might already be doing some type of unit study in your homeschool. And I think this is a good option if people are just kind of wanting to add in some extra fun activities to accompany something they're already studying, because that makes sense, right? And you could even choose 2, 3, 4 different themes that you want to toss into your morning basket. Again, so your kids are getting some music lessons and you're just doing it in a really fun, engaging way, but the lessons are going to stay short. And the other good news is that when you purchase even one of the single Morning Basket Music units, you will receive a special discount code in the back that gives you a certain percentage off if you later choose to come back and buy the entire curriculum. Okay, here's my final thing that I'm going to tell you. Since this program is written over the span of 12 weeks, that's how much time it would cover if you did all of the lessons included. Some people might be thinking, is there any way that I could stretch this out so that it's actually going to cover an entire half of the school year? And I have good news for you. Yes. The new thing that's coming this fall is I will begin releasing special holiday units. So when all of those get released, it is going to cover the holidays of Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, and Easter. So there will be 6 additional units added, and if you combine those with your regular Morning Basket Music curriculum, you could very easily stretch this out to be an entire half-year program for your kids to learn music. I hope this video has been super helpful. I have tried to go in depth and think about all the different things that people might want to know about Morning Basket Music. And I really hope that you will consider using this as an engaging tool and a really fun way for your kids to learn music in homeschool. If you have enjoyed this video, please be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Morning Basket Music so you don't miss a thing. Until next time, happy music making!